What's better than all pumpkin everything? Everything you need on GoPhone from AT&T. It gives you unlimited talk, text, and data usage with the first 1.5 gigabytes at high speed. Plus, it's only $40 a month after a $5 auto refill discount. AT&T, mobilizing your world.
First payment is $45. $5 discount applied to monthly rate plan charge upon enrollment and auto refill. After first 1.5 gigabytes, get data speeds up to 128 kilobytes per second. Additional charges and restrictions apply. See store for details.
The Columbia Broadcasting System and its affiliate stations coast to coast present
Baseball, Beer, and Barbecue.
The 0-2, swing and a miss, strike three, blew it past it.
Discussing baseball, good drinks, and food.
And you got your honey mustard?
I love mustard.
With Ted Hicks, Todd Vandenberg, and Lee Vowell.
Well, big deal. I am very professional.
Every Saturday morning at 10 a.m. on the Happy Hour Network.
And welcome to Baseball, Beer, and Barbecue with Todd and Lee. Today, Ted is vacationing, taking the holiday in Richmond, Virginia. So if you're listening in Richmond, Virginia, thank you very much. Like us on Facebook, follow us on the Twitter at BaseballBeerBBQ, and read us on our blog site, baseballbeerbbq.com. We will be joined in just a bit by Anthony Broome to talk tomorrow's Michigan versus Ohio State football game. Anthony is the recruiting editor for SB Nation's Michigan site, Maize and Brew, which is an very interesting title, I think. You can also hear us on NGSC Sports, I-95 Sports Network, Back Sports Page, RF Sports, XRP Radio, iHeartRadio, iTunes, Arena Sports Network, and Todd has a very special dedication that he wants to send out to a computer place in North Carolina.
Friends, did you stand in line all night last night and get yourself a new computer and you brought it home and you don't know how to set it up, or it exploded on you because it was a cheap, one-time only purchase that you never should have made? We have your solution. Computer Repair NC at CJ Computers NC, 919-653-8496. Computer repair and IT consulting in Wake Forest, North Carolina, and the surrounding universe. Once again, why go to the geeks when you can go to the pros? Computer Repair NC, 919-653-8496.
Is that where it is? It's in Wake Forest?
Yes, they're in Wake Forest
idea.
now.
I thought it was in Raleigh.
They were in Raleigh. They have relocated to Wake Forest.
Well, that's interesting. Well, if you are anywhere in the Eastern Hemisphere, you should, or Western Hemisphere, you should go to CJ Computers and see, because they will fix your computer, and they will do it well. Or your money back, as Todd says. So let's get straight into Major League Hot Stove. Actually, we do want to point out that obviously we have our great guest coming on at 11:30, but at about 11:20 we will be playing the song that I recorded. There will be a Christmas classic. I recorded it well over 5-10 minutes yesterday, and it will be an instant. I mean, it's going to be Bing, there's going to be Dean, there's going to be Frank, and then there'll be Lee from Baseball, Beer, and Barbecue. You will want to listen to this. It's called the Reindeer Song, and we'll play it about 11:20. It'll be fabulous. It'll change your life.
Yep.
So
it will bring tears to your eyes.
Hopefully it will, because it's a little heart-wrenching. I mean, it's from the heart. So Major League Baseball Hot Stove, the Los Angeles Dodgers of Anaheim have hired Dave Roberts as their manager. He was always in the running. It wasn't a surprise like, oh, we've been interested in Gabe Kapler and so on and so forth. And no, let's just choose Dave Roberts. He's got experience playing the game. Obviously, played many years in Major League Baseball. He has experience as a coach. So, what do you think as far as the Dodgers hiring of Dave Roberts? And should point out second, now we have two African American managers, which I think is important. We don't just have Dusty Baker, and we were thinking we weren't going to have any there for a couple of days. Now we do have two.
Yeah, I think they should have gone with Gabe Kaplan. Actually, I think that would have been a better hire.
Well,
that's all you have. Time will tell, but just how good he will be for the Dodgers. The Dodgers, you never know. But I'm happy with it. I mean, he's a good baseball guy, and it is important, like you said, is like, another minority hire, and that's not why they hired him. I mean, they hired him because they expect him to be an excellent baseball guy. It's a bonus, for the Dodgers and for Major League Baseball. It's another minority hire, and it's crazy that we were at that point where there's not a single black manager in baseball. It's like, what the hell? So it's good to see if he turns out to be as good as Dusty Baker, that's going to be a hell of a hire. So, I don't see any reason why he won't be a good hire. He should be. He should be very good. I always liked him a lot as a player. He always seemed to be, one of those more the heady type of the guy who knows inside baseball as opposed to someone who just got by on just sheer talent. So, and let me rephrase that, because nobody gets by on sheer talent. I mean, that's one thing that Bo Jackson, of all people, who has more talent than anybody on the planet ever practically, and he just worked constantly at all of his games that he did. So it's not just talent; it's incredible hard work. It's just when you start with a base that high, you can go even further. But that's the long way of saying, yeah, I think Dave Roberts will be good.
Well, I hope he works out. Obviously, nothing against Mattingly. He obviously had a successful run as far as winning division championships and so on and so forth, but the team only got so far. And whether that was management, he made some moves that were like, and he seemed to make them at times when it was most important, like in the playoffs. Yeah, exactly. We'll see how Dave Roberts does. And in fact, obviously, which we'll get into the top 20 free agents that you wrote for NGSC Sports in just a second. But obviously, you do have to have talent. And if the Dodgers lose Greinke, they're going to have to find some way of filling that void. Yeah. So, Kershaw and the others, this team's still going to be good, but whether it's even championship quality, and it's not without Greinke or another pitcher of his ilk, like, David Price or someone else, maybe close to that. I don't know if there's anybody close to that, really.
But it could be. It definitely could be a championship team without Greinke or someone of that level. Absolutely could be. It's a hell of it easier if you got a guy who just pitches like he's insane all year, like Greinke did. But, it depends on the manager. And Roberts strikes me as the kind of guy who can get buy-in, and I'm not saying Mattingly wasn't, for whatever reason, he wasn't the perfect fit to take them all the way. I'm happy he's with the Marlins. They needed him. Hopefully he'll last more than 6 weeks because it's the Marlins, but, they won't just fire him and pay him out for his eternal contract because they like to sign those. But Roberts I think is a good hire. I think he'll get buy-in because he knows the game, and he was never a superstar player, but he's a guy that they'll all respect, or should, because he knows how to play baseball. He knows what it takes to win. And I think he'll be an excellent motivator, and he knows the game. So, sure, if they manage to keep Greinke or they get Price or someone like that, of course it'll be easier. But you don't necessarily – they didn't win with him. So, it doesn't necessarily mean that you need him to win. And it's not a knock on him or Mattingly. It's just look what the Royals did.
Right.
You don't necessarily need superstars at every position. So
no. You just need good baseball players.
Yeah, exactly.
Guys who can play baseball. So, let's get into your top 20 free agents, as you wrote on NGSC Sports on the 18th.
Let's not. That was
you
a
felt like
miserable
you needed
article.
to put that up on the 18th. You felt like you needed all that glory that day, I guess, didn't you? So anyway, David Price
should have been up on the 16th, but anyway.
Well, NGSC. Well, anyway. So David Price is ranked number 1 on your list, and then Zach Greinke, and then Jason Hayward. So, there seems to be so much discussion as far as, well, the Red Sox are going to be a major player as they all. What are the Red Sox really the new Yankees? Are they going to spend? They're going to spend so much. They're going to pick 1 or 2 of these guys up. As some people say, they're going to get 2 of these guys. Why are the Red Sox now? What's going on with the Yankees? Why are they not still the Yankees? And why is everybody forgetting that the Dodgers are more than willing to spend money at this point?
everybody, it's how everything goes in cycles. I mean, obviously, and people are starting to look at, you can actually develop within the farm system, and the Yankees seem to be. I mean, they're blending it because the Yankees will never not be in the free agent market, and the Red Sox. I mean, that seems to be their mantra. It's like every other year we'll make a big splash, and every other year we'll be in it, and every other year, the off years will suck. Which is odd, but I mean the Giants do the same thing. It's bizarre, but the Yankees, I think they've just kind of come to realize that you cannot necessarily just buy pennants. You can't. Now for a while they did, but they also happened to get lucky or smart, however you want to look at it, in their assessment of talent. I mean, man, that run they had early in the millennium, that was an unbelievable run, and they just haven't been able to do that. Of course, no other team has done that since then either. But the Red Sox are spending money. Dodgers are spending money. I mean, there are other teams out there who can.
The Braves. No, I'm joking. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, the Braves. The Yankees aren't the only ones playing that game anymore. And that makes it a little more difficult, too, to pick up everything you want. So, yeah, I think the Red Sox probably will make a big splash. And maybe they will pick up a couple of these guys. And, the Dodgers could pick up 5 of them if they wanted to. They don't seem to care. It's like, oh, yeah, it's okay. We'll buy Belgium and we'll trade it and we'll get 2 players. That makes no difference to them how much money they spend.
They spend a lot of money because they make a lot of money.
And that's just on the Dodger dogs. It's they seem to have a plan, unlike some teams who just spend money because let's spend money, and they don't really think it through. So going back to the article, it's like I would think, well, obviously any team would be happy to have Price, but I would think the Dodgers would really, really like to pick up Price. And the only reason I have him ranked ahead of Greinke, and I didn't go into it in depth in this, but I did in a previous article, is just to me, Price is younger, and Greinke's had his career year. He's not going to have that season again. If he does, I mean, they're going to be rewriting a hell of a lot of record books. That's just not going to happen. And I'm not saying, of course Greinke's going to have a great season, but not like he just had. No, I mean, that's not going to happen. You don't have back-to-back 1.66 ERAs, No. Right. But Price is the guy who could. Because, Price was, compared to Greinke, Price was, a piker with his 2.45 ERA and a WAR of 6. It was like, wow, what are you doing? You're not even bothering to compete. Price could be the guy who kicks it up. And if he has an off year, it's like, what's he going to do? He's going to have an ERA of 2.9 and contribute 4 wins over. I mean, to me, he just has more upside. If I'm looking at like right now, I want to win this year, I would probably go for Greinke. But longer term, I would go for Price. And it's not exactly like he's going to be a bad option. And looking further down the line, if you really want to. If you're not just thinking about, we got to win now, I would go for Hayward. It depends on what you need. If you need pitching, obviously you're not going to go for Hayward. If you need hitting and you're looking at more long-term, then you go for Hayward because, we've all talked about it, about the whole issue of is Hayward going to be, when is he going to reach his potential? It's like, stop it. He has. Stop thinking this guy has to hit 40 homers a year to be successful. He's a hell of a good player. He's an excellent player. In, year out, it's like, is he one of the best players in the game? Well, it depends on what you're looking for. Right. If you're looking for a guy who plays a great field, is a really good hitter, yeah, he's one of the best in the game. And he's established that level, and you're going to get that from him every year. Like, why would you not want this guy? So, it depends on what you want.
Yeah,
depends
and as you point out.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was about to say, as you point out in the article, he's not a 35 to 40 homer guy because he doesn't need to be. But what would his
right.
WAR be if he did hit 40 home runs?
Oh my God!
Oh my gosh! And with the same on base percentage, and because he gets on base, and he plays. He may be the best corner outfielder in Major League Baseball right now. So, he does so many things to help a team win. Obviously, because 6 WAR every year, which is basically what he has, except for 1 year, which was injury prone a couple of years ago.
Yeah, a 35 to 40 homer guy. Which would you rather have on your team, Jason Hayward or Chris Davis?
Well, Chris Davis is. I know what you're saying. I think Chris Davis gets kind of a bad rap because his average was god awful, but he still actually takes walks, and he's a really good first baseman. I think the other thing, and maybe I would rather have Hayward, obviously, but if you need power, then you're going to go. But I mean, it's almost like, would you rather have Hayward or Upton, Justin Upton, because Upton's going to strike out so much, and he's going to not bring things to the table that Hayward does. And they're both outfielders, and they both have a skill set that should translate into, again, 6 WAR every year for your team. And if I'm the Dodgers, I mean, they have a plethora, obviously, of outfielders, but they're not. I would be more than willing, if I were the Dodgers, and I am a Dodgers fan, of getting rid of some of those guys to bring Hayward in. I would trade for in a second. Because he's full of potential. Yeah. He should be able to do so much more, and he probably can. And at times when he's healthy, he does. But he's never been Jason Hayward over a whole season. He really anything close to that. So the fourth guy you have on your list, Johnny Cueto, actually is interesting because he had kind of a weird year last year, but he obviously has talent. So how much though do you think there's a drop off from Price and Greinke to Cueto?
Oh, it's a big drop off. I mean, I definitely think it is, and I'm not talking about Cueto last year. I'm talking about Cueto the year before, and the year before that. I mean, he had an off year last year, which is, to me, this is the time to get him, because you can actually maybe you'll save yourself $10 million over the life of the contract because he didn't have a good year according to his standards, and of course, his agent. And you better hope it's not Scott. Do you know who his agent is? Hopefully it's not Scott Boras, but. It's like he's going to point out to every other year the guys have.
It's actually Ted Hicks. I just looked it up. Ted Hicks. That's his agent.
Oh, it's over. It's over. My God, no one's going to sign him. He'll point to the 2-hit shutout in the series, and it's like, hey, this is the real Johnny Cueto. So, but going back to his peak years, he's not Price. He's not Greinke. I mean, he's the best pitcher out there. And I'm talking about free agents, not overall, but he's the best free agent pitcher after those guys. But that's a jump. There's a bit of a drop, and it's not really huge, but I mean it's definitely he's leading the second tier. He's not on that first tier with those two guys. And watch, he'll probably have like a 1.2 ERA this year.
Yeah, exactly.
27 wins, but and the thing is, well, not 1.2, but I mean he could easily be the Cy Young pitcher. Easily be the Cy Young pitcher for whichever league he winds up in. He's got plenty of talent, and it's just, and he had a little bit of elbow trouble. I don't really think there's that much of a gamble with the guy. I mean, an off year and his WAR was almost 5.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. That's terrible. I don't want that guy on my team. He had a bad year, and he's for most teams he would be their first pitcher.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll take Cueto for sure. But yeah, there's a drop between the two for sure. Between the top two and him. Definitely.
I think that pitching WAR is it's different though than hitters. Just because they are able to have so much because of they don't play every day and the way it's set up.
Right.
It's interesting. I'm hoping that Zach Greinke will stay with the Dodgers, obviously, but I'm hoping that he chooses the Dodgers for one reason, because they're in the National League and the guy likes to hit. I mean, he enjoys hitting.
Oh, yeah.
And he's not going to do that, obviously, much in the American League unless it's an intra-league game. Bryce Dixon is actually Johnny Cueto's agent. So I've never heard of Bryce Dixon. I'm sure he's a great person, and he's probably a very successful agent, but I've never heard of him. So we're actually going to transition from baseball to a few other things non-baseball related, and then we're actually going to talk with Anthony Broome of Maize and Brew about Ohio State and Michigan. But now is the perfect time to my song, the Reindeer Song. It's about almost 2 minutes, and it's Gather the Family Together, because it's going to be one of those standards that will be covered by, Nat King Cole's grandchild. And it's going to be an important moment in your life. So here it is. Todd, I'm going to mute you so that we have the full bandwidth so people can hear
I'm
this.
muting.
So it's called the Reindeer Song. Enjoy. You know what's better than caribou? Reindeer. And also elk. And finally, deer. You look just like scrambled eggs when I want bacon. You know what's better than caribou? Bacon. And also scrambled eggs. And finally, deer. I ran over a sign. It fell. You know what's better than caribou? Reindeer. And also elk. And finally, deer. You know what's better than caribou? Bacon. And also scrambled eggs. And finally, deer. I ran over a sign. I ran over a sign. Caribou. I ran over a sign. Bacon. 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 So that's the Reindeer Song.
That is my new holiday tradition for all holidays. Groundhog Day, St. Swithin's Day, Boxing Day. I'm playing the Reindeer Song.
It was the lyrics were something that kind of reminded me of my childhood. So I was it's what it is. Hopefully everybody enjoyed that, the Reindeer Song. Get used to it. So on the Reindeer Song, but yes.
A shout out to Ted, who is at H.H. Gregg right now, I'm sure, because that's where he was yesterday, in Richmond, Virginia.
Still in line.
Yeah, he's still in line.
Hopefully Ted is playing that. Hopefully Ted played the Reindeer Song out loud for everybody.
He picked up a jelly case for a Nintendo 3DS. It was on sale for $79.99. So good for you, Ted. Good job.
So let's move on. So the Golden State Warriors have yet to lose unless they lost.
And they won't.
Yes. What are the chances the Golden State Warriors of Golden State, California, obviously, go undefeated?
100%. And until they go into Bedlam, and they will lose in an upset to Oklahoma State. But other than that, they're fine. I don't think they'll get the record. I don't think they'll win 73. Simply because at some point they're going to have some injuries. They're going to have to rest some guys. They'll hopefully, if they get to that point, they will be smart and realize, and there's no way they wouldn't, and that they wouldn't just say, I was like, oh, we need the record. It's like, screw the playoffs. We don't need to be rested for that. Curry is, the game's changed, and there's been a lot of talk about that, how, Curry wouldn't be quite the player he is today if they were playing by, like the 80s and 90s game, where it was a lot more contact, a lot more physical, much like hockey. Much like NFL football. What is going on with the wussification of American sports? Like, there's no contact in anything. Everything it's flag basketball. It's flag hockey. It's everything's flags. Flag hockey.
Flag hockey.
The All-Star game is 3-on-3. What are they doing?
That's just
what
for
are they
fun.
doing?
It's not a real game. It's not like Major League Baseball. It's not a real game.
And it's not a real game. We're talking about practice here. But I do think that's cool that the NHL is mixing that up and just saying it's like it's fun. It's an exhibition. Let's make it as fun as possible. That's a smart play, as opposed to. I love the All-Star game, but they really need to cut that crap out. As like, well, whoever wins this game, it's like, stop that crap. It's just play for pride. Don't play because whoever wins gets the frickin' home field advantage. That's so stupid. And we've all talked about that endlessly about it, but it is so stupid. But what were we talking about? We were talking about the Golden
State Warriors.
The Golden State. And they'll lose 15. You know? That's what I think. They'll lose 15. Which is like, right now, do they look unbeatable? Yeah, they look unbeatable.
Yeah.
It's crazy how well they're playing. But now, come on, at some point, Curry's got to cool off. I mean,
they'll just fluky lose. I mean, you know, it happens. You're going to lose at some point.
You've seen the stat, right? Yeah, they will. But he's scoring so many points per minute played that he is up there with Wilt Chamberlain the season when he scored the 100 points in the season. He's the only guy who's in that. He's scoring more points. I can't talk. He's scoring over a point per minute, which is insane. And that was 2 games ago, and I don't know if he's still in that range. And, you know, Jordan didn't do that. I mean, no one did that ever except for Wilt. There's no way he keeps that up. And it's not just because, he's not a great player. Of course he's a great player. He's the best. Is he the best player in the game right now? I don't know, but he's certainly the best shooter. My God, he's the best shooter. It's unbelievable. And like they say, you know, it's a different game. It's not as physical as it used to be, you know, because he's having more. It's easier for him to create his own shot than it would have been, you know, if he was playing back in the 80s and 90s. But he would have made it happen. You know, it would be a different game, but he'd still be the best shooter in the game, just be a little bit different. So, no, they're not going to go unbeaten. Whew, thank God I'm done with that.
Well, you know, obviously when Wilt scored his 100 points, and that game was in Hershey, Pennsylvania, and he actually was playing the Oompa Loompa team. So it was a little bit unfair, but it was shocking that he had four of his shots blocked that game. I mean, some of those Oompa Loompas, the hops. Yes. So a quick look at the college football playoff top 10. We've got Clemson and Alabama and Oklahoma. I think rightfully okay in the top 4. It'll be interesting to see what happens with Michigan if they beat Ohio State. I don't think they'll move up that much, or if Michigan State actually wins out at this point. It's funny, Michigan State should have that loss, but they shouldn't have the loss to who they lost to. They should have the loss to Michigan, which is a very strange season. But yeah. Iowa has, I know that you beat everybody. The last team they lost to was the University of Tennessee, which is funny. But, you know, they're not the 4th best team in the country. I'm sorry, they're just not.
They're not.
The problem is there's no reason for them to lose unless they play Nebraska at Nebraska. But Nebraska is not. I say that because they beat Michigan State, and which was a fluky game, and that Michigan State really shouldn't have lost that. But Iowa's going to be undefeated when they play in the Big Ten championship game. What a crock of a schedule! What if Tennessee had this schedule? Tennessee, who's lost 4 games by a total of 17 points. It's right. Well, Tennessee would be Iowa again, I'm sure.
Well, you know, and they say it's like, well, you play who they would put in front of you, but okay, they played one of the teams they decided to schedule out of conference is North Texas State. You know, Illinois State. I mean, they didn't go out there and let's schedule some really tough opponents. They know they're in the weaker division of the Big Ten. So to me, they don't belong there. And, you know, and if they get lucky, and they would have to be lucky to beat Michigan State at this point, but you never know what's going to happen. They could. And you can say, well, if you run the table in the Big Ten, you go undefeated, you win the conference champ, you should be in the playoff. It's like, yeah, okay. I mean, I suppose you should, but they're in by far the weaker of the 2 divisions. And, I mean, if that happens, if they beat Michigan State, which would be their first quality win, and that's assuming they get past Nebraska, and you know, Nebraska's not a great team, but they're decent. They could certainly pull off the upset. Do they have any shot against beating Clemson, against beating Alabama? No. Or Oklahoma, if Oklahoma gets through there, they got no shot at beating any of those teams. None. Right. So to me, it's a farce. That sorry, Iowa, but it's like next year, not next year, but whenever it's time to reschedule, you know, when you're scheduling games for 2020 7, don't put North Texas State on your, don't put them on your schedule, and Illinois State. Schedule actual teams. So then you can say, it's like, oh, we played the best teams possible instead of that.
Right.
And obviously every team does that, but when you know you're in a weak conference, in a weak division, then you've got to schedule better teams out of conference, and they don't. They absolutely avoided it. So
Illinois State actually has the best record on their schedule. They played Iowa State, Pittsburgh. They played Pittsburgh at home early in the season when Pittsburgh was playing a little bit better. They won by 3. They beat Wisconsin, Illinois, Northwestern, which is, Northwestern was playing better early in the season. They're still 9-2. Maryland, Indiana, Minnesota, Purdue, and Nebraska. It's really it's an interesting thing. But what we should do is talk about the real teams in the Big Ten. Yes, and we're going to do that actually with Anthony Broome. We now welcome Anthony Broome to the show. Anthony is the recruiting editor for SB Nation's Michigan site, Maize and Brew. Anthony has not been on with us before. We're really looking. Todd is a Michigan fan, Anthony, just to let you know. So
indeed, I am.
Yeah. So how are you today?
I'm doing well. Still getting over the post-Thanksgiving food coma, but other than that, just exciting week of football. Rivalry week. It's always fun across college football, and Saturday's game should be interesting.
Yeah, to say the least. Yeah, this is Todd, Anthony, and really glad to have you on the show, especially this week of all weeks. Did you really expect Harbaugh to be this successful in his first year? Or were we looking for even better things? Did you have even higher expectations for his first season?
I don't think anyone could have imagined. I think 9 wins for Michigan was definitely not out of the question. They're there already this year, but how well they're playing and how well the defense has played all year. Jake Rudock was expected to come in and be a stopgap, and he's done a nice job of that. Even in the last 3 weeks, he's even taken a bigger step forward than that. He looks like one of the better quarterbacks in the Big Ten right now. So from that point of view, I don't think anyone could have imagined Michigan playing as well as it has. And, who knows, a win over Ohio State and some help from Penn State, which I don't necessarily see happening. And then there's still a shot they're playing for a Big Ten title next week.
Right. And you mentioned Rudock, and during the Utah game, I'm hollering at the television. I wasn't screaming, but I was hollering, is like, bench this guy. Well, and luckily Harbaugh's the coach and not me. But and you mentioned his development. Is that Rudock had more than anyone thought he did, or is that Harbaugh's just that damn good at coaching quarterbacks that he's brought him along this well?
Well, like I said, I don't think anyone could have expected Rudock playing as well as he has. He's the first Michigan quarterback ever to throw for 250 yards plus in 3 straight games, which is, Michigan's had a lot of good quarterbacks over the years, so that's kind of great stuff. But, I think a lot of Rudock's struggles early on in the year had to do with the fact that, he showed up pretty much right before camp started. Had to learn the playbook, get comfortable with his teammates. He didn't have the benefit of spring football like a lot of guys did, and it was definitely a feeling out process early on. The timing wasn't really there. They weren't hitting on those deep passes at all. I think as the season's gone on, you've seen him. He's been comfortable. He's looked comfortable all year, just in terms of he doesn't get rattled, he doesn't get flustered. He makes his fair share of mistakes, but they don't usually snowball in a big way. But I think you've seen more specifically since that Minnesota game, the guy's just taking the next step. He's got the look in his eyes, and he's a more confident passer. The chemistry's down. His playmakers have developed nicely. J.U. Chestnut has been a godsend for them in the last few weeks. Really been a big part of what they're doing. So I think it's a lot of different things on why Rudock has looked better. You definitely tip your hat to Jim Harbaugh on what the staff has done. They've been steadfast throughout that he was their guy, that there's no one else there's no one else to give a quick look for. So you give your credit to Rudock for buying in, and for Harbaugh to finally finding ways to settle him down and get him more comfortable in this offense.
Hey, Anthony, this is Lee. I have a question about two recent coaches at Michigan. Obviously, Harbaugh is a different breed of cat altogether, but why long-term did Brady Hoke and Rich Rodriguez not work out?
Sort of apples and oranges with the two. With Rich Rodriguez, at least from my point of view, it was a big culture change for Michigan. They went away from a lot of the things that the program was known for, more so, going away from a power pro style offense to switching up to the spread, and there were other factors there that a lot of people in the Michigan community weren't very fond of. A lot of things that were cut out or ignored, but so it was never a great. I think Rich Rodriguez is a good coach, but it was never really a great fit at Michigan. To me, it was more a guy they settled on when they couldn't finish the deal with Les Miles. With Brady Hoke, I think I'm really hesitant to use this term, but I almost feel like as if he was a hand-picked sort of puppet for a positive PR spin for the athletic team. He was a guy that bought into the Michigan program. He was a guy that loved Michigan. He was a great recruiter, but just always looked like he was in over his head. Always, it was never. I mean, they went 11-2 in that first year, but it's. I mean, that was obviously the exception to the rule, and they never got better, and the kids they brought in never developed it. It just wasn't meant to be, I guess, and they could have had Harbaugh back then. There were some other factors there. A whole lot of, the athletic department was a mess the last couple of years until Dave Brandon was ousted out and all that stuff. But they finally got it right. With Harbaugh, obviously, they hit the home run they needed to hit, and with the last two guys, it never seemed like it was destined to work out.
And, moving on to Ohio State just at least for a minute, after they lost to Michigan State, it seemed like most of the players who could go pro announced they were going pro. Ezekiel Elliott basically exploded. Urban Meyer then talked about the difference between leaders and front runners. So, first of all, after the Wolverines do beat the Buckeyes in the Big House tomorrow, what mystery illness will force Urban into retirement, and then will he be the next coach at Miami or LSU? And even more, as far as just this game, obviously it's a big game every year, no matter if both teams are good or bad. But how big, as far as recruitment goes, is this more important for Harbaugh at Michigan or Urban Meyer now that Ohio State's shown some cracks that they're not going to be the juggernaut everybody thought they were? Who's going to win as far as the recruiting battle? And is it that important going into the game? Or are some players just going to go to Michigan, some players going to go to Ohio State, and never the two shall meet?
Well, they recruit a lot of the same talent. A lot of times, especially with the Michigan kids and Ohio kids, it's the line is drawn at the border. You have kids that are either going to go to Michigan State or Michigan, or you have the Ohio kids that are going to stick in Ohio. But Michigan has 21 players from Ohio on their roster. So they do recruit a lot of the same talent. There's definitely some crossover there. In terms of recruiting overall, I think Saturday is a game that Michigan not necessarily needs to win, but it would kind of be an icing on the cake for them to really put the stamp on this first year under Harbaugh. Recruits are already looking towards Ann Arbor as more of a destination than they may have previously thought. But it's tough. I think it's tough to gauge which team needs it more. I think Ohio State definitely doesn't want to have one loss turn into two. I do think they're the better football team. I think they're a little bit more talented, but they're not playing as well. Michigan's playing better right now. It's a game at home. It's a game that the line has been all over the place this week. Ohio State opened as a favorite. Money shifted towards Michigan. It went back towards a pick'em, maybe even back towards Michigan. And then now where we stand today, Ohio State's a 1-point favorite. So it's really tough to say who needs it more. I think who would it be more important to? I think it would be Michigan at this point.
Awesome. Todd has a question about what does Michigan need to do to win tomorrow?
Yeah, exactly. Sorry about that. What do they need to do to win tomorrow?
I think Michigan State gave the Wolverines a blueprint to beat Ohio State, and that's you have to beat them up front in the trenches on both sides of the ball. There's no doubt that Ohio State was the more talented of the two teams in Columbus last Saturday, and without Connor Cook, there's really no way Michigan State should have won that game unless they outplayed them out front. And their defensive line did just that. Their offensive line was pushing guys around. But I think Michigan, to me, that's key number one.
Mm-hmm.
The defensive line, they've taken some hits with injuries this year, but they still have a lot of guys there that have played well throughout the season. Now, how does Ohio State offset some of that? I think Indiana showed a few weeks ago that if you go tempo on Michigan's defense, you're able to rack up some points. You're able to rack up a lot of yards. So that's something to look out for on Saturday. I think overall Michigan's run defense against Ezekiel Elliott's going to be a big key. He's going to touch the ball a lot more than he did against Michigan State. He needs to for Ohio State to win. He's a Heisman hopeful. He's easily the best running back that Michigan's seen, that we'll see all year. So you don't shut guys like that down. But you keep them away from the big chunk runs. You keep them out of the end zone, and that's not necessarily bend but don't break against Ezekiel Elliott, but you want to keep them from doing too much damage. And I think as good as J.T. Barrett is, and even if Cardale Jones gets some run at quarterback on Saturday, I think Michigan's secondary and their pass rush is good enough to limit the damage the Buckeyes do through the air. So those are the two main keys I'm looking for.
And you mentioned, of course, Ezekiel Elliott, and they've got to give him the ball more for a lot of reasons. What else does Ohio State have to do if they're going to eke out this win and avoid their second ignominious, terrifying, and very pleasant loss?
Well, I think that a key for Ohio State defensively is they're going to have to shut down the middle of the field. I think that's where Jake Butt has a chance to do a lot of damage for Michigan over there. He's been very good in recent weeks. Rudak's done a really nice job of spreading out the ball to everyone, so there's not necessarily one guy in particular to key on in terms of Michigan playmakers. I do think J.U. Chestnut is a guy that Ohio State's going to want to slow down. They don't want him running free. They've got some good pieces in their secondary as well, so they have the ability to do that. If Ohio State's able to stop the run, which Michigan hasn't really been able to get a run game going in recent weeks, if Ohio State's able to do that, cause Jake Rudock to maybe make some bad decisions and really shut out what Jake Butt is able to do, I think their chances there are pretty good. And on the flip side of the Ezekiel Elliott thing, I think they want to get Ezekiel Elliott back going. Michigan has shown some vulnerabilities in their run defense in recent weeks. Did a better job against Penn State, but they still gave up a 50-plus yard run. So, for Ohio State, you want to get the ball in the hands of your playmakers. That's where Ezekiel Elliott comes in. That's where maybe Braxton Miller comes in. So, if Ohio State's able to do that, I think the chances there for a nice offensive day for them, and their 11th win of the season. And
tomorrow, also, how big a fan of Penn State are you going to be temporarily?
Well, any Michigan fans that are hoping for a chance at the Big Ten title game are going to be pulling for Penn State. I don't see them winning that game. I think the Spartans are too good up front and what have you.
Yeah.
You got to beat Ohio State first. I mean, all you can do is win and let the other stuff take care of itself. Now, I don't want to bring back bad memories for anyone, but Michigan sort of literally and figuratively fumbled away their chance to control their own destiny against Michigan State. So you win that game, and maybe you're not hoping for any extra help on Saturday. But just all you can do is beat Ohio State. You do that, you're guaranteed. You win. You've got 10 wins on the season. You need some help later on in the afternoon from Penn State, but if you beat Ohio State, I mean, a New Year's Bowl definitely seems in the cards, and a Rose Bowl is still in the mix. So anytime Michigan's able to beat Ohio State and go to the Rose Bowl, that's, to me, at the core of the rivalry, that's what it's all about. And
right.
Certainly the landscape of college football has changed with the playoff and all that stuff now. But, in year one of Jim Harbaugh, if you're able to beat Ohio State and go to the Rose Bowl, I don't know if you can ask for a better year one, considering where they've been in recent years. So
exactly.
We'll see what Penn State does. Who knows? We've seen wacky things happen all year. It happened to Michigan State earlier this year, so not outside of the realm of possibility, but who knows?
Yeah, we have one more question for you, and talk about wacky years. Iowa is still unbeaten, and could make the college football playoffs. They obviously haven't had the toughest schedule, but in your opinion, how good is Iowa, or not good is Iowa?
I think there's a lot to be said for winning all the games that are on your schedule. The thing, people complain about where they're ranked now, but all these scenarios are going to have a chance to play themselves out in the Big Ten title game, and assuming that Iowa wins today, which I think they will beat Nebraska. But they've been very good. I mean, there's no debating that. Anytime you're undefeated as a Big Ten conference team, you deserve respect. Kirk Ferentz has done a really nice job with that team this year. I think a lot of people were kind of hoping for a C.J. Beathard, Jake Rudock Big Ten title game, which could still happen, but that would be kind of a fun storyline. But I think they're good. I think they deserve where they're at right now, and if they remain undefeated, go into the Big Ten title game next week and beat we'll just assume it's Michigan State, then they will have earned where they're going to be at, and you assume they'd be in the top four of the playoff rankings. And if they're able to stay undefeated and do that, they deserve to be where they are. So I tip my hat to them. I think they've been overly impressive, but there's a lot to be said about just winning the games that are on your schedule, and Michigan State hasn't been all that impressive this year, but outside of the Ohio State win, but they've found a way to get it done. I think you can't. To me, a win is a win is a win. I know there are always extra numbers, but that's a good football team, and they're 11-0 for a reason.
Definitely a fair answer. Well, Anthony, it's been great having you on. Will you let our millions of listeners, will you let them know where you can be found on the internet and where they can read your stuff?
Yeah, you can check out my work and the rest of the staff's work over at maizeandbrew.com. Follow us on Twitter at Maize and Brew. You can follow me on Twitter at Anthony T. Brew. And that's the main stuff. That's where you can find all my hot football takes and what have you. So there it is.
All right. Well, thank you very much, and go Michigan.
All right. Thanks, guys.
The term is "Go Blue." Thanks a lot.
Is that what it is? Well, I don't know.
I know you don't know.
Means Tar Heel blue. So I'm like, oh,
yeah, I know, or Dodger blue,
or Dodger blue. So yeah. Anyway, Anthony was great. I mean, we're so lucky to have really, really good guests. I like his take. Because we kind of poo-poo Iowa a little bit, but his take on Iowa is extremely fair. They've won every game on their schedule, and that's all you can ask anybody to do is win the games. Maybe the schedule hasn't been the toughest, but at this point, if you have not lost any games, you're still accomplishing something. So,
well, and to be fair to Iowa, not only have they beaten the Minnesotas and the Marylands and the Northwesterns, they've beaten the officials too, and a lot of teams can't make that claim either. So, all power to them.
That's right.
That's not easy this season, as we were just talking about. So.
Yeah. So let's close the show with a couple of non-sports related issues. Obviously, we saw the shooting down of a Russian fighter by the Turkish forces. Of course, Turkey says a Russian plane was over Turkey airspace. The Russians are saying no, it was over Syria. The only issue, we don't really know, but the only issue with that to me is why would Turkey shoot down a Russian airplane over Syria? That doesn't make any sense. Why they would actually go out on that limb and do that. Even if it's over Turkey airspace, it's kind of kind of weird. But according to NPR, one of two crew members survived the shooting down of a Russian warplane by Turkey on Tuesday, Russian officials say, and was rescued by a Syrian commando unit in an operation that ended early Wednesday. The news comes as international tensions continue to rise over the incident. As NPR reported Tuesday, Turkey says the Russian Su-24 fighter jet was in Turkish airspace when it was shot down by Turkish F-16s. Turkey says it warned the Russian warplane 10 times before taking action. Russia, of course, maintains the jet was flying over Syria at the time. So what's your take on that?
It's probably, as often happens, all too often happens in war, it was probably a tragic miscommunication. You know, I mean, Turkey, they probably did warn the Russian plane 10 times, because there's no reason for them to make this very specific claim and not be true. However, they can't prove that the Russian aircraft heard it. It's entirely within the realm of possibility that the Turkish pilot said, "Hey, you're in our airspace. What are you doing? Reply, respond." And the Russians never heard it. The Russians claim they weren't warned. It's like, how does someone not realize that that's almost in the nature of communications now? You know, it's a miracle that our cell phones work. You know, and it's like, and you've got NATO planes talking to non-NATO planes and different systems. And I'm sorry, it's not like gravity. Everyone isn't trained to use someone else's equipment. You don't just jump in and everything works magically because, you know, this is real life. You know, it's, and like you said, it's like, why would they shoot them down if they were over Syria? Well, there's been a lot of talk over the past several months that he's not particularly happy with bombing raids going on in basically Turkmen areas, because it's their nationality, even though they're not in Turkey. It's the same nationality, and they've been complaining to Russia quite a bit about that. So I can see where maybe someone got a wild hair and said, well, I'm going to stop these guys because my cousin lives in that town. You know, that could be it. It would be incredibly stupid, but that could be it. I think it's much more likely that obviously someone's wrong. Either the Russians were flying over Turkey and didn't realize it, or the Turks thought the Russians were flying over Turkey and they were actually in Syria. Someone got it mixed up. It was like Google Maps didn't work once again. That's not a shock. You know, I mean, to me, this is a breakdown in technology for a lot of different ways. It's in communications, the location, and what they need to do. And thankfully, so far, they have been, is talking instead of like, oh, hell, let's get it on. You know, it's like, I'm surprised Donald Trump hasn't just jumped into the middle of it, because, you know, he met Putin in the green room, even though they were thousands of miles apart. And, you know, he probably says that he was actually in the airplane, and he knows because he saw it that they were actually there, and they were cheering on the destruction of the Turkish village, even though it was in Syria. Because, hell, in 5 years, Trump probably will be saying that. You know, and he'll have a golf course over the River of Blood in Syria/Turkey, which wouldn't have happened either. So, well, I'm glad that at least they're talking. That, you know, it sucks that the tensions are so high, but at least it's tensions that are high, as opposed to, you know, open warfare.
Yeah,
that's not exactly the next thing we need.
Well, and it's funny because Donald Trump has said a couple of things, or had something to do with a couple of Big Ten teams. It's a Big Ten day, I guess, on the show. You know, he's said how stupid are the voters of Iowa. They choose to vote for Ben Carson because of, well, I almost agree with him on that. But so the other thing is, this past week on Monday, I keep thinking it's later. I keep thinking it's 2018 for some reason. Anyway, Monday had a rally, and he led off with an Ohio State football cheer, which was interesting. But the biggest cheer, according to NPR again, is how tough he was going to be in response to ISIS. Quote, "We got to knock the crap out of them, folks. I'll tell you, we got to knock them. Would I approve waterboarding? You bet your ass I'd approve it. You bet your ass in a heartbeat." Why? Yeah. Seriously. Why, have we really come to this in this country where someone of just total bluster without, I know we don't like the insiders, we like the outsiders and whatever, but you have to know how government works, and you have to know how to work with other people within government, which obviously it's hard to believe he would be able to do that. He's got to be thinking, wow, I'm making my next series is going to be huge because I'm just made it this far, and this is much further than I ever thought I'd make it in a presidential campaign.
Yeah. And he still hasn't ruled out running as an independent, which, I'm the Republican Party.
I thought he did. I thought he had to sign that pledge.
Oh, he did, but now he's backed off on that because he's Trump. So, And besides, it's a pledge. Who cares what he signs? I mean, honestly, whatever. But and the waterboarding thing, when people brought out that, actually, that's been proven that it's not particularly effective, because really torture never is, because people will say whatever they think you want to hear.
Want them to say, exactly.
And he said, well, they'll deserve it anyway. What the hell? What is this guy? This guy is polling at all? I mean, he makes Bobby Jindal look like a genius. It's incredible that people are supporting this guy, because he's all bluster. He's like the king of narcissists, because it's all about oh, this is huge, this is beautiful, this is that, and making up crap because he likes the narrative of, it's like, I have preserved this important section of the Potomac River because this battle took place there. And no, there was no battle that took place there ever. But he had to create it because I have done this. It's all about I've done this. It's how people cannot see through this, and his idiotic BS about, I saw this on TV, and so I know that the thousands of Muslims were cheering the Twin Towers going down in Jersey. And it's like, I saw it on TV when it happened. Okay, well, you would have mentioned it 2 days later when you're on television, wouldn't you? It's like, no, apparently not. He just rewrite it. The thing is, he probably actually believes that he saw it, because he's got enough money, even though he bankrupts, the companies he's running. It's like, let's see, 4 times now.
Yeah.
He constantly gets these bailouts, and so he thinks he's invincible. So, and of course, he doesn't have anybody in his inner circle that would ever tell him he's wrong, that would just say no, because he wouldn't be able to tolerate that. So he's not used to ever being told, that's a little bit insane. You're just being ignorant. You're being stupid as hell.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Step back. He's never heard that because he refuses to.
Yeah.
It's amazing that anybody supports this guy. This concept of having experience as a bad thing is mind-boggling. You don't like Congress? It's like, you're the ones who voted these idiots in. You're the ones who voted in the idiots who shut down the federal government, yet you hate Congress. Stop electing them. Oh, my God.
They like their local person.
Always. Because their local person is, they're geniuses.
Exactly. So, let's end on a couple of happy notes. Novak Djokovic, fabulous season again. Even better than 2011. He won 3 or 4 Grand Slams, made finals in all 4, lost in finals, of course, to the French, to Stan Wawrinka. Won 11 titles overall with a record 6 Masters titles, 82 and 6 on the year, 5th best winning percentage in a year all time. Novak Djokovic, just phenomenal player. He's still 28. I mean, he could play for, Federer's still playing at a very high level. I don't know if Djokovic will be that, because that doesn't happen very often. But, I'm not saying he's going to catch Federer Grand Slams, but, hopefully he'll get 3 or 4 more and, put himself in a position even more to be talked about. He's maybe not the greatest of all time. He may be top 5 by the time he's done. We'll see. So, but that actually is our show. We'll end again with the new Christmas classic, the Reindeer Song. And again, we do want to thank Anthony Broome of Maize and Brew for being on Talk Michigan, Ohio State. We will be back next week on our normal time on Saturday morning at 10 a.m. Happy Black Friday, everyone, and enjoy the rest of your weekend. You know what's better than caribou? Reindeer. And also elk. And finally, deer. You look just like scrambled eggs when I want bacon. You know what's better than caribou? Bacon. and also scrambled eggs, and finally, dear, I ran over a sign. It fell. You know what's better than caribou? Reindeer, and also elk, and finally, deer. You know what's better than caribou? Bacon, and also scrambled eggs, and finally, deer. I ran over a sign. I ran over a sign. Caribou. I ran over a sign. Bacon. 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 Bacon.
Want internet that works whenever you need it? Xfinity Internet delivers reliably fast speeds, even during peak hours when everyone is online at the same time. Get started with Xfinity Internet for just $19.99 a month for a whole year. Call 1-800-XFINITY or visit xfinity.com today. Requires enrollment to EcoBill paperless billing. Offer ends 11/18/15. Restrictions apply. New Economy Plus Internet customers only. Equipment, taxes, and fees extra and subject to change. After promo, regular rates apply.